6. Man Toga, SRS runway, auto thrust is blue. 80 knots, thrust set. 5500. 31. Rotate.
Good morning, good morning. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Glad to see everybody here for another V1 live stream. What is going on? Good to see everybody here in the house today. I know it's morning for me, but I know it's afternoon for a lot of you folks out there, and especially for the European fan base. It's beginning to be the mid-afternoon, mid to late afternoon, so glad to have everybody here wherever you are joining from. Guys, I am super excited for today's stream. So initially, someone already asked this question, said, hey, after that last stream, I was going to be flying for 4 days. Well, I am. I'm actually supposed to be flying later tonight. So this little beta update kind of dropped to the beta testers yesterday, and I started messing around with it. And you guys know the 319 is probably my favorite Airbus in the X-Plane platform, just because I'm partial to the 319 itself. I think it's kind of the Swiss Army knife of the three variants of Airbus, right? You got the 19, 20, and 21. I love flying the 21. 320 is just kind of in the middle of the road. The 319, to me, I feel like there's nothing that the 319 can't do that the other airplanes can do. So for that reason, I prefer the 319. Plus, who doesn't like a short little hot rod of an airplane? So when I saw this update coming out, I was like, man, I'm going to check it out. So I did a couple test flights, and I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to do one quick little stream just before I get back to work on today's flight, because I wanted to show you guys what's coming up. Now, as far as release date, I have no idea. Don't even ask the question, because that's not part of my I guess I don't have access to that information, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. So that's for Tolis to decide. This is just kind of what's going on. They've got a big slew of changes coming for you, and some stuff is actually pretty pretty neat and stuff I've talked about before. So it'll be exciting to see it actually come to fruition here as we start up and get out of Phoenix Sky Harbor. So first thing here on the exterior, I'll show you this before we hop into the pit. But the outflow valve is now simulated for the Airbus, the 319. So you got a little outflow valve there on the back of the airplane, which is pretty cool. They also have a 3D simulation for the RAT, the ram air turbine. So that, and PAC, I don't believe the PACs as well. So we'll go over the changelog in cruise. It's a short flight up to Las Vegas, but I wanted to go over some things that are going to be happening before you even get to cruise on the changelog. And of course the changelog is pinned to the top of the chat there if you want to go take a look at it for yourself. So quick flight, need to get in here. Let's go ahead and turn down X-plane. It's quite loud. Turn down X-plane a little bit here. So yeah, we're just doing one quick flight today, but let's get this airplane kind of in that I guess ready state here. So we're going to do our flow here. We're going to get the crew supply oxygen on. We'll get the ground control going so we can record our communications. We're going to leave the pumps off. We are on ground power. I'll go ahead and turn the dome light on here, make it a little bit brighter here, get the nav light on. Overhead panel is good. We've already done the fire test prior to you guys joining the live stream, so the fire test is complete. Now we're going to move down here, and as I get ready to start setting up the box, one thing that I've noted, and I've showed it before on stream, is when we go through the ECAM pages on the 319 in particular, they weren't never incorrect. They just kind of were a representation of EIS-1 software and some older software models of the Airbus. Now it's been so long since I've actually seen an EIS-1 aircraft. For those that are unfamiliar, Airbus has a bunch of different software options, and the original, I think it was the original Airbus, had what we call EIS-1, and all the displays were slightly different. So I mean, you even had the way this panel was shown here, everything was just a little bit different. So I think they had some of that going down here with the systems pages, but now the systems pages completely represent a much more modern EIS-2 type aircraft. So I'm going to go ahead through the engine page here. Look at our bleed page. We no longer have those white boxes around the flow valves and everything, so this looks good. That is a much cleaner representation of the real thing. Pressurization page looks good. Electric page looks really good. Hydraulic always look good. Fuel looks good. APU, door page, wheel page, and the flight control page is also been updated. It matches almost exactly. I mean, this looks just like a real flight control ECAM that you would see in the real aircraft. So they've kind of tweaked it, cleaned it up, made it look a little bit better. Fantastic job from Tolis there, just kind of on the aesthetic side of things. Now, my favorite part of this update that's coming out is we really have a bleed logic, and it corresponds to your thrust and fuel burn and all that. So we're going to get to that here in a little bit. We're actually going to do a cross bleed start when we get out of here. So let me get a little water here, and we're going to get the airplane rolling. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out our ND page here. We're going to go plan mode, constraints on, and let's do a quick initialization of the aircraft. Oh man, I don't even think I have the right database. I totally forgot. Let me see. We're not going to be on VATSIM anyway. Oh no, 2103. I think that is current. Because I just want to take the time to show you guys this airplane and kind of what Tolis has been working on it. I've said so many good things about Tolis, and I continue to say it because, wow, look at that. It even pulled up my flight plan that I had in the output page. That's pretty cool. All right, I think that's always been a feature. I'm not sure, but I just tried that. I've kind of playing with it. I put the FMS flight plan from SimBrief in the Sim Resources Output folder, FMS plans, and it just picked up my flight plan. I think we had one in there. That's why I did that. I don't think that's an official change. I think that's always been there. But we're going to be operating as America West, or Cactus 357. We'll throw that in there. Cost index of 75. Cruise flight level. I don't even remember what our cruise flight level is here. Let's take a look. Let's see. Yeah, see, we already had this flight plan in the box. That's probably why I pulled it out from the output folder. Cool deal. Our cruise flight level up to Las Vegas today. Short flight. Shouldn't be very high. SimBrief tends to file you pretty high. 280. We can get up there. We're at a 319. We're going to put 280 on the cruise altitude. Align. And does this give us a temperature deviation? +1. So actually, this is one thing that you guys can look at here. So cruise flight level, we always a lot of times I am guilty of this too here on stream, is I just put in the cruise flight level and leave it. In the real airplane, we have to correct for the actual flight temp. Oh, my phone just decided to start going off. That's so weird. So, like, I guess when I start streaming, my phone notifies me that I'm streaming and starts playing the stream. Interesting. So, in the real aircraft, we have to put in the corrected temperature. So you'll see here on this flight plan, this is the United 18 format I use from SimBrief. You guys have seen this before. But you'll see here, flight level 280, minus 40 is the standard temp. P01, that means +1. So the actual temp there is +1 above standard. So we're going to set minus 39 for the cruise temperature. We'll throw that in the box there. Flight plan, it looks like it loaded our en route, which was pretty simple. We're going to depart off runway 8. And we are going to be taking the Zephyr 2 departure procedure. Zephyr 2 to Rasta transition. Now, I'm going to insert this and I want to show you guys something here. This is part of the update. So before, your constraints wouldn't be shown on the McDo, or if you could make them until you finish the initialization, but now you could see we've got our constraints and that actually shows them in the box. So I'll pull up the changelog. Let me read this one officially from them. It says here, where is it here? We're going to go over the major ones, but the minor new features. Okay, flight plan page rework. Constraints are now shown prior to filling the init B page. So in order to have the constraints shown, you used to have to come in here and do your init B, get your zero fuel weight and block, but that no longer is part of the deal. This is more realistic to actually have this in here before the init B is completed. So that's a minor new update, but for those of us that see the airplane on a daily basis in real life, you know, we pick up on it, but as a simmer, you may never have picked up on it, but now you know that it is actually working as intended without having to fill out that init B page. All right, so we've got our departure in there. We're on the Zephyr. And then we're going to pick up the Rockstar 1 into Lost Wages here. I'm planning on 2.6 left. Used to be 2.5 for the longest time. 2.6 left, Rockstar 1. Ironically, I'm going to be flying into Las Vegas here a little bit later tonight, so this is good practice for me. Rockstar 1. And I'm going to just go ahead and hit insert there, because I don't think we have an official transition. Let me scroll this in here. I didn't pref this flight here. Prino Shan, Reelan. That's the arrival. Rockstar. Yeah, it's all in there. Good deal. All right, so our flight plan is in the box. We'll go ahead and close that for now. Let's finish up the prep. Clear Direct Fubar, good question. I see this one pop up a lot too. He says, what about winds? When you're doing real flights, do you do stuff with the winds on the climb and then cruise? So Fubar, back in the day, before we had ACARS winds, we would have to manually input the winds at all the different flight levels in the MCDU. Now with current ACARS, what happens is when we actually get a PDC or a clearance from air traffic control through our ACARS system, we get what's called a perf data uplink, and it will actually update the winds for us in the flight plan, and then you just go ahead and hit insert. On a super short flight like this, I mean, it's less than 250 miles, it's really not going to make much of a difference at all. You could just use history wind or average wind. Now the aircraft will also update the winds for you depending on the software that you have. But for a long flight, you're probably going to want to go in there, go to wind data, wind request, get the winds, and insert them. But it's kind of a step that I always skip here in stream because, like I said, in real life when we get our PDC, it says wind data uplink or wind perf uplink. I can't remember what the exact phrase is, and then you just insert it. But yes, back in the day, you're absolutely right, Fubar. You would have to go through each part of the flight plan, climb, cruise, descent, input the winds manually from the paper documents. But again, on a short flight like this, we're not going to be super worried about it. But we'll go over that here once we get everything aligned as well. I'll go back and see how the winds are functioning. But we got our main flight plan in there. I do fly with failures on stream as well, so we're going to always set up our secondary. You guys have seen this happen to me live. We've had to shut down engines. We've had engines blow up on us. So we're going to do a quick secondary flight plan here. We're going to go Phoenix to Phoenix. Again, secondary, all we care about is the approach back in. If we do blow a motor and we have to come back, I'm going to land on the longest dry runway, which is going to be runway 8. And, oops, I'm going to insert that. And then I'm going to go secondary one more time, and I'm going to put the perf data in. And all I care about is the approach perf data for the secondary. I don't care about the climb, cruise, or anything like that, because if we do have to come back, Again, you're only worried about the approach portion of that. So right now it's a beautiful morning here in Phoenix. Winds are 040 at 6. Some operators won't even put winds in here just because they want the 040. Temperature this morning off the ECAM, most accurate, is 20 degrees. That's what the airplane's feeling. And QNH 29 or 9 or 7. We'll throw that in the secondary. And for the approach, you can put your MDA in there. I'm just going to put a 200 DH because I don't want to pull it up. I'm too lazy. But in the real world, you'd, of course, pull out your MDA, see what it is, and throw that in there. All right, so our secondary is in there. Hopefully we don't have to use it. RadNav, nothing to hard tune on this departure, so I'm going to leave the RadNav blank. Initialization page B. This is where we actually have to come in here. And let me close the map page and do some loading. So we're going to take moderately loaded 319. We don't need all that cargo. We only need... What's our planned gate fuel here? Shouldn't need very much fuel at all for this flight. We are in pounds. Love it. Love having pounds. I don't know why it's so hard for other developers to not have pounds as an option, but we do have pounds in the Tolis. That came on one of their larger updates a while ago. So gate fuel. We have an alternate on this flight plan for Ontario. I don't know why. It says we need 12.3, so we're going to go ahead and set 12.3 here. 12.6, that works. Less than 300 pounds. We don't have to get an amendment from dispatch. 3,400 pounds of cargo, 137 passengers. We'll apply these load settings. Flaps 1, Toga thrust. Check this out, guys. So this is another part of the update here. Packs are now going to be dependent upon your takeoff performance calculations. So I've gone over this on stream a couple times. You guys have asked, what about a packs off takeoff? How do you successfully do a packs off takeoff? There's videos on YouTube of operators doing a packs off takeoff. The reason for this is you need maximum performance from the airplane. Anytime you are taking bleed pressure from the engines, you're now reducing the available thrust you have to get the airplane through the air. So a packs off takeoff eliminates that extra bleed pressure on the engine so you get maximum performance. There's a couple of different ways to achieve this. Personally, where I work, we prefer the APU on method because the APU bleed logic will take control over the packs and the engines will still have full thrust. Or you can go ahead and just shut your packs off manually. This is now indicated here on your takeoff data here on your Tolis ISCS. So we always use Toga thrust here. So packs on, this is your normal numbers here, flex 71. That is a pretty standard 319 performance sheet here. But since we are yoga only on this channel, we're doing a flaps 1 Toga thrust packs off takeoff. So we're going to make sure we have our packs off. We'll do it the old school way. We'll actually turn the packs off. We're not going to use the APU bleed because we're also going to do a cross bleed start. This will also affect your fuel burn as well with the packs on there. So when we start talking about study level aircraft, we have to talk about, well, what about systems or things that happen inside of the airplane? So we have on-the-line type aircraft, which what I&I has kind of coined that phrase, which I really like. Everything works from A to B that it should, A to B. You can see hydraulic fluid stuff and moving. When we start talking about study level airplanes, you have to have, in my opinion, in order for an airplane to be study level, you have to have subsystems working that you may or may never see actually working for you. So fuel burn with the use of packs is kind of one of those things where I'm like, okay, yeah, that you would think that's a no-brainer, but most developers probably would skip over this if they're just trying to get a lighter simulated aircraft. This is, we're really diving deep into the performance of the airplane now, where we're starting to simulate other things. So when you decide to do a certain takeoff performance, and now it's going to affect other things down the road. It's going to affect your fuel burn, it's going to affect your takeoff roll and all that. So this is when we really start talking about very detailed aircraft. So we're doing a packs off takeoff. Let me get our weight in there, 123.6. And our CG is going to be 30.5, almost perfectly balanced airplane. Block fuel for this flight is 12.6. We'll throw that in there. Hour 21 extra. You know why that's so extra? It's because I didn't put in the alternate here. Ontario. I don't think there's any weather in Vegas. Anyway, we'll throw Ontario in there. Now we got an alternate. I don't want to land with 30 minutes. I got to go at least 45 minutes on my final time. Extra 29 minutes extra gas. That includes our alternate direct to. Carter says, I know some European companies turn off packs on every flight to save fuel. small amounts, but over a lot of flight, that adds up. Carta, you're absolutely right, man. And I think that's where a lot of these videos on YouTube stem from, or the questions stem from, because, man, I see these guys always doing packs off takeoff. Why don't you do it on stream? And it's going to be airline SOP dependent, right? We don't do it where I work unless it's a performance-related issue. But Carta's absolutely right. I mean, you think of, let's say you have a fleet of 100 airplanes or more, and each airplane is doing 4 or 5 flights a day. Every single takeoff, if you have your packs off, think of the fuel savings over time in just 6 months, in the course of a year. That does add up. That's that bottom dollar value that the airlines are looking at. And especially in tough times with COVID and everything, you're trying to be as cost efficient as possible. You're absolutely right, Carta. So that's a good point on that packs off takeoff there. All right, so our NIT B is now complete. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to throw in our prog here. I'm going to go Phoenix, and I think we put 08 in there. 08 will be our departure runway. And perf, here's our speeds, 134, 134, and 138. 138. Transition altitude is 18,000. I've already saved that as default. Flaps 1, no flex. Engine out acceleration is 2099. All right, that looks good to me. That is set. We'll go ahead and close that. We do have our fuel on board correct. Close U. 12.6 is loaded. Good. Let's come to the overhead. Let's prime the APU. Let's get our fuel pumps on. On and auto for the seat belts. Arm the emergency exit lights. Get rid of the flight control page here. Like, what percent of Toga takeoffs are really done packs off? Team Vodka, to be fair, I've seen, I would say it's more common to actually see a packs on Toga takeoff than it is a packs off. I've done packs off Toga takeoffs, but it's going to be, for us, dependent upon aero data and what the performance company comes back with. So we don't make that decision as a flight crew. For packs, we can make that decision for Toga, but for packs, that's going to be an aero data or performance decision made when we get our performance coming in from ACARS. So I'm running the BSS sound pack on this one again. I just wanted to test it. So whenever I get a beta version, I do a test flight with everything completely stock, and then I throw the BSS pack on there to make sure everything works nice and smooth, and then I'll eventually throw the IAE engines on. But I actually don't have the IAE engine mod on for this flight. But this livery, I mean, this is your standard IAE engines. They look pretty sharp, if I do say so myself. I mean, there's definitely been updates over time to the IAE motors from when the airplane first came out. The spinner needs just a little bit of help, but I mean, it's pretty good for just that default IAE motor. Oh, announcement.
We'd like to welcome everybody on board our flight this morning. We're getting close to having everybody on board. We'll be underway here in just a few minutes.
All right. Announcement coming on. That's good. 200 people watching. We only have 80-something likes. Guys, go ahead and hit the like button for IAE motors. Come on. Even if you don't like me, you got to like IAE engines on an Airbus, especially a 319. Hit the like button for those IAE motors. Good little sound pack here by BSS. I do like their 319 sound pack. All right, we do have that on. We're going to turn the bleed on, disconnect from external power. That looks good. Doors are closed. Let's go ahead and get rid of everybody here. We'll drive away all. Now, what I really like about this pack is you can actually hear the packs spinning up. Those are the air conditioning packs spooling up. I love it. Alright, so there's a couple of things here. What was the meter? 29 or 9 or 7. I've got mine synced so they'll all match up. 29 or 9 or 7, which is 10:15, which is set. We're going to go on the departure here. Let me get some little details cleaned up here. Let's pull out our departure chart. We're going to be on the, what was it, Zephyr 2 RNAV. No ATC for us, so we're going to set our top altitude to flight level 280 in the box. Off of runway 8, out to Sparky, left turn at or below 9 for goalie. That's our only restriction coming out here, off to Zephyr. If we bang an engine off runway 8, we're going to make a visual return back to runway 8, long drive runway. I've got that perf data set in the box. We're going to start 2 engines. Scratch that. We're going to start 1 engine at the gate. We're going to do a cross bleed start without the APU on taxi out. So we'll look at the bleed logic. And that's all I got. Any questions? No questions? All right, I think we're ready to go. We'll go ahead and disconnect that power from ground service. Doors are all closed. I'm going to do manual closing of the doors because I don't want it open when we do replay. All right, let's call a pushback truck and get out of here. Better pushback. Where you at?
Ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
All right, let's go straight back, tail in the alley, please.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
All right, I'll get back to the chat here in a little bit. And we're going to go over the whole changelog in flight as well. They didn't add fuel temps. Carta, I didn't see fuel temps on the ECAM as well. Let me take a look. Fuel, correct. Yes, so that is one thing that is missing here is the fuel temps on the ECAM. Yeah, it should have fuel temps there. I believe it's right on the bottom of the, like right here where my cursor is. I think that's where the indicator is. I've had to look at fuel temps on the ECAM page, I think one time in my whole career, because we actually had an HF radio fault or something, and there's something to do when you have that radio waves going through. You got to make sure your temps are below a certain degree, and of course if you're flying at extremely cold temperatures, you got to monitor the fuel temps on the ECAM page. But
okay,
minor
all doors
detail.
and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
Is the gradual bleed pressure buildup now modeled when switching engine mode? Simone Tumba. Yes, we're going to get to that. This is my favorite part of this update, just because this is something that, you know, you can change a bunch of little things all the time, and that's good. I encourage that. I love when little things get finished, like we have the outflow valve modeled on there. Now we have the packs option for our takeoff, you know, Toga or packs on, packs off. But something as small as bleed pressure logic is huge, because on a real day-to-day basis, that is one thing that you're always looking at and you're always monitoring. So before, in the Tolis, when you would start engines, you would move the ignition switch to ignition start, and you'd get instant bleed pressure of 40 psi. It wouldn't turn, it wouldn't come down, it wouldn't fluctuate, it would just be there.
Release parking brake.
Let me get the pushback underway. All right, brakes release, you're clear to push. Beacon coming on too.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Roger. So now what happens is you have a gradual buildup, and then you actually have a decrease in pressure as the engine requests that demand to spool up the engine. And we're going to do a cross bleed start, because that one is even more important, because when you do a cross bleed start, you have to use additional thrust on the operating engine to provide enough bleed pressure for the engine that you want to start. If you don't, or if you make a mistake and you bring that thrust lever to idle after the FO already moved it up for you, and you bring it back to idle, you're going to get a start fault ECAM, which, ask me how I know about that. We're going to simulate that here on departure here. It's not a big deal. You just cancel the start, you reset, and you're on your way. But that is now modeled. I actually tested that out last night. I was pretty impressed by that. Fubar says, hit the like button, period. V1 hasn't even left the ground yet, and he's answered about 10 questions. Every stream is fun and informative. Thank you, Fubar. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I literally was not going to stream today because I have to go to the airport. As soon as we set the parking brake in Las Vegas, I got to go get ready to release the parking brake here in DFW for a real flight. But if that doesn't show passion about aviation, I don't know what does. I just was so excited that this airplane got another update. I wanted to do a quick stream, kind of show you that, you know, this airplane is still far from dead. Tolis is working on a lot of different things.
Set parking brake.
And they're still working on the 319, getting it to absolute perfection.
Stand by.
All right, brake set, you're clear to disconnect. Show me the pin out front, sir. We're going to start engine 1 here, so I'm going to pull up this page here. We're going to go ignition to ignition start. Our bleed pressure is coming online, which is good because we already had the APU bleed running. Let's go ahead and turn off the APU bleed real quick. We'll see the pressure bleed off. And then, so what'll happen, I'm going to go back to off there. Now I'm going to show you, this will get new guys like Phantom 320. When they're brand new to the airplane, they come to start engines. Technically, the APU bleed may or may not be on at the gate. Most of the time it is. But if it's not, you'll get a new guy that comes in.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
All right, man. Thanks for the smooth push. We'll see you next time. But if you get a new guy that comes in, what they're going to do is they're going to go APU bleed on, ignition mode to ignition start, and they'll go start 1 before they have enough bleed pressure, and you can get an ECAM fault. Luckily, we didn't have that problem here. We're about to 34 PSI. Pressure's coming up. but it's good to see that buildup of pressure now. We'll listen to the start here. I'll be quiet. I love that startup sound, man. That sounds like we had a good trip over. Now, another thing, too, is this ECAM is much more representative of an actual IAE engine start. It kind of used to just seem to me like a CFM engine start. Now, the way it spools up, it seems more realistic. I don't know if that was changed in a past update and I just haven't caught it, but if you sit here and watch the ECAM spool up, the way the needles move, it does seem more IAE specific than what it used to feel like when we originally had the airplane released. I don't know if that's an update that came out and I just haven't seen it recently, but I did notice that last night when I was testing it. All right, so we're going to do a cross bleed start. So we're going to turn off everything here. We're going to do an after start, engine mode back to normal. We're going to go spoid brakes arm, flaps position 1. We're going to come up here. We're going to turn off the bleed and we're going to turn off the APU. We're also going to turn on the yellow electric pump because we're going to single engine taxi. Pack 2 associated clear. And we'll do an after start checklist. We're going to put the TA into transponder mode. After start checklist, engine anti-ice is off. Yellow electric pump is on. Rudder trim 0. After start checklist is completed. We're going to go taxi light on and cinematic taxiway out. Oh, I got to turn the parking brake off. Brakes off. Cinematic taxi off here. Pushback was a little crooked. Probably Dimitri down there in the tug. Who doesn't love a 319? Can we get 319 likes? We have 339 people watching. What about 319 likes? Man, I miss this livery. Old America West. I love it. Phantom's got a good point. He says, in the real bird, there is more of a delay before the buildup starts, so you're more likely to get the fault. Correct. Yeah, when you hit... If the APU bleed is off and you turn it on, there is a significant delay in getting any bleed pressure at all. And some airplanes are different than others. It just kind of depends. We're going to go ahead and taxi out to this taxiway here, and then we're going to do our cross bleed start. And when you have a crew up here working in tandem, you know, you do a cross bleed start, keep the airplane moving, but because I'm single pilot operation right now, we're going to set the parking brake and we're going to do a cross bleed start. We're going to kind of cut the corner here. Oh, look at that X-Enviro sun. I need my sunglasses. Oh, that's runway 26. We're making a wrong turn already. We don't want to go to 26. We got to go to 8. Now I got to turn into the operating engine. A lot of you wonder about asymmetric or differential thrust on the ground. Oh, it shouldn't make that much of a difference. Let me tell you, you'd be very surprised at how difficult it is to turn into an operating engine when you're single engine taxiing. So that's kind of a thing you have to take into consideration when you're a captain and you want to shut down an engine, say after landing. What's your gate parking situation like? Because we always shut down number 2 because we can run that yellow electric pump and not have to run the PTU all day. But if you have a hard left turn into the gate, like a hard left 90 or 100-degree turn, maybe it's more than 90 degrees, it's actually a lot more challenging to turn into that operating engine than you may think. So we got it though. We turned around. We're on our way on the taxiway here. We'll do our cross bleed as we get a little further down towards the hold-up pad down there. Jeremy says, I wish Tolis would model the EIS one with CRT screens so that when you use America West liveries, it'd be totally correct. Yeah, man. A CRT mod. Gosh, I hate CRT. I mean, it's nice to see in the sim, but CRT screens in real life suck, man. The cathode ray tubes, you get a sun glare coming in from the window, you can't even see your screens. We still have a couple McDoos that are CRT, and you look down here, if the sun is just right, you won't even be able to see your McDoo. It just looks blank. Guess the Mystery says, the thing that amazes me about the 319 is it can fly a flight as short as Isle of Man to Liverpool, which is less than 75 miles, or go from New York to London. You got it, man. I mean, the 319, I think, is one of the most underrated airplanes that people fly in the sim, because people think, oh, 319, it's a short-haul airplane. It's the same wing, generally speaking, from the 19, the 20, and the 21. You start talking about Neo XLR, there is some significant difference. Now, the flap layout is different on the 321 over its two shorter brothers, but the fuel capacity is pretty much the same. And matter of fact, it's almost identical, depending on which models you're comparing. So you think about the same fuel capacity, the same wing, but you have a shorter airplane, so you have a lighter gross weight. Therefore, you'll be able to go further than your counterpart. So a 319 CEO will have a greater range than a 321 CEO because it's a lighter airplane with the same fuel capacity. Now, the engines, the thrust is derated per model. So even though you have an IE or CFM motor on your 19, 20, or 21, the thrust output is derated and accordingly. So the 321 does put out more thrust than a 319, but it's just a duration of the engine. It's the same engine, they just derate the amount of thrust output available. Phantom says, I hate the CRT McDoos, and the stupid slash is in a different spot. Oh my gosh, yeah, so you're coming down here, the old McDoos, there's a little knob up here. Instead of the brightness control, this is actually a knob, and then the keypad has changed, right? So there's like a notch over here. I don't know, you look it up at Google. It's a very small difference, and you would think, oh, that shouldn't make any difference at all. But when you're constantly flying, doing 3-4 legs a day, and you're plugging away at the McDoo, and every airplane you fly is a traditional McDoo, and then you get one that's a CRT, and you try to look for the slash button, or it can be annoying. It's small things, right? It's, pilots always have to complain about something. You always joke and say, well, if I had an airline that only flew one day a week, and it paid you the same as you get paid now, but it only flew on Wednesday. Every single Wednesday you had to fly. Would you work there? The first thing the pilot would say would be like, well, do we have to fly every Wednesday? Because we always find something to complain about, man. Why would they derate the power? Jordan, because it's not needed. So again, you have a lighter gross weight, right? The 319 is significantly lighter than a 321, so you don't need that excess thrust. At that point, you're going to be burning more fuel. So you look at a thrust to weight ratio, and that's how you come up with your proper deration for the engineer. So at least that's how I would imagine they would do it, right? Because you got to look at that thrust to weight ratio, and then they can calculate how much thrust is needed for each engine. Golden State, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. Welcome aboard, my friend. Somebody posted in the Discord, we're talking about CRT screens, about, oh, they're simulating the CRTs, and they pulled the whole ECAM out. The upper ECAM was removed. That's pretty traditional. I've seen, maintenance will come up here. I went down to an airplane one time many years ago, and I got into the cockpit. We have a little maintenance card, so anytime maintenance is working on the airplane, you put a maintenance card on here so you know not to operate any switches in case they're not in the flight deck at that current time. I came down to the flight deck. Everything said it was on time. I put my bag down, and I didn't even catch my eye until I started to sit down, and I looked over here. The ND was missing, and the lower ECAM was missing. Literally, these were just hold. They pulled out both screens, and they were working on changing something. And believe it or not, that flight actually, I think we left maybe 5 minutes late. But it's pretty incredible how maintenance is done to these airplanes. When you see maintenance working on them, they remove panels and stuff. But these are just big old boxes. You can just pull them right out. Move the bezels, remove the bezels around the edge. And yeah, I sat down. I'm like, oh, okay, well, obviously we're not going anywhere right now. So... Does derated power translate into longer time between engine swaps on the 319? That one I'm not sure about, Chris, because I would imagine even though your engine is derated, your maintenance schedule is probably still going to be the same for that motor, whether it be a certain amount of hours run, or I know that you have, you have weekly checks and you have overnight checks. That's something more on the maintenance side that I'm unfamiliar with. I don't know if there's any maintenance guys in chat, but my initial guess, Chris, would be even if you have a derated engine, like a 319 engine versus a 321 engine, the maintenance schedule is probably going to be more or less the same because it's respective to each engine. Just because one is putting out less thrust doesn't mean you can prolong the maintenance or the preventative maintenance on that motor. Yes, Finley, the PAX takeoff is now modeled. We are going to do a PAX takeoff for this departure, and we're going to do it the old school way. I'm going to set the brake down here. We're going to do a cross bleed start, and we're going to see the bleed logic in full swing. I'm going to intentionally do a cross bleed fault. I don't know if Phantom 320 is still in chat, but he's an Airbus driver as well, and we're going to just simulate him doing his job improperly, since he tends to miss a lot of things here on stream when I do my pre-flight. So he's going to improperly do the cross bleed start. We're going to trip the ECAM, and then we're going to do a proper cross bleed, and you'll see that this airplane is really becoming a living, breathing machine. It's not just, turn the power on, put your flight plan in, and take off. There are things happening on this airplane behind the screens, behind the McDo, that are actually working as a real airplane would work. So that's what makes it cool. That's what makes it study level, and that's what makes me want to do a stream right before I have to go fly. So, all right, we're going to do a cross bleed right here. We're going to set the brake, kill the taxi light. All right, so I'm not going to do this exactly by procedure because I'm doing this more of as a showcase thing. I want to show you guys what's going on. So I'm going to pull up the bleed page. We're going to pop it out. I'm going to go to the overhead. All right, so we need to cross bleed engine start. We're not going to use the APU. This is something that you would do in real life if your APU was deferred, or maybe your APU bleed was deferred. We need to find a way to start the engine. So we have to get pressure from engine 1 to engine 2. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and kill our packs, pack 1, pack 2 off. So we're going to get maximum pressure from the operating engine. We are going to open the cross bleed valve. See the cross bleed valve in motion here. And engine 2 bleed off. We have a green in line, which means we now have the high pressure air from engine 1 going through the cross feed valve. This is your cross bleed valve, I should say. It is now inline green, meaning that it is open, and we're ready to receive power to the engine. What we're going to do is we're going to come down here. I'm going to move the engine mode switch to ignition start, and I'm going to get rid of the bleed page. I'm going to go engine page. All right, so before you start engines, we look for a minimum of 28 psi. So you could see at idle thrust, we're only getting about 23 psi here on the bleed page. If I increase the operating engine, in real life I do about one throttle's width there, and that's 36 psi. That's pretty good. You can go up to 50% N1. Now you don't really want to go all the way up there if you don't have to, but I mean you can see we could increase our thrust here. I mean that's plenty of pressure right there. So at about 33%, we've got 42 psi. I'm going to go ahead and move the engine 2 master to on. And look at that, it's holding steady. Now if I were to bring the pressure back during the start, so the engine was spooling up here, look what happened. Now it's fallen back. It's lost pressure. Our bleed pressure is down below minimum. Ding, here we go. Engine 2 start fault, low air pressure, bleed air supply check. I mean, oh, great. Way to go, Phantom. All right, kill it. That comes off. We're going to reset, clear air. And if you ran the starter and the chrono, you got to make sure you're watching your chrono time and all that. So, now we're going to do it properly. We're going to go ignition to ignition start. We're going to increase bleed pressure. And we're going to maintain that thrust in there so we have proper bleed pressure. We'll do 30... Let's do it a little less. We don't need all that power, but we've got plenty of power here with 35. Let's try it with 35. We'll go ahead and select engine 2 on. There's the valve opening. pressure is dropping slightly, but typically on a cross-bleed start, if you bump that thrust lever up and you get pressure, you're going to maintain that pressure because that engine is providing a constant flow of pressure across the bleed system, as opposed to an air cart, where if you do an air cart start, you do tend to see a drop in the bleed pressure a little bit more than you would during a cross bleed. You can hear it spooling up. There's our power transfer, good start. So now bring that number 1 thrust lever back to idle. Now we have air bleed 2 off. That's associated because we have our number 2 bleed off. So we're going to go with our flow here. That goes back to ignition start, or I'm sorry, that goes back to normal. That is still armed. Flaps are still a config 1. Now we're going to go ahead and reconfig the overhead panel. Engine 2 bleed can come on, and we can go ahead and get our packs on, and we'll go ahead and put that cross bleed valve back to the auto position. Now again, that whole process wasn't necessarily by the book. I just kind of was doing that to show you guys that the aircraft bleed is now simulated much more accurately. You can see now that our bleed crossfeed valve is closed. Everything is closed, green. All valves are where they're supposed to be, and we're good to go. All right, the last thing before we do takeoff, we are doing a packs off takeoff, so we're going to go ahead and turn the packs back off for takeoff. Phantom says we best do another shared cockpit soon so I can defend myself. Yeah, it's got to happen, man. It's got to happen. We got to do it. I'm telling you, man. Maybe this week. I don't know what your schedule is, but I don't know. I know your time zone's differently. Morning is best for me, so that's going to be like early as heck for you. But we really got to try one, man. All right, so let me just go ahead and make sure everything is good here. We're going to go transponder TARI. We're 2,000 on the squawk. That's going to go into above mode. Our flaps are set. Our packs are off for takeoff. We do have a status message here. Let's check that. Pack 1-2 off. That's associated. So we're going to take off with a status message. Auto brakes max. Takeoff config. We should do our flight control check. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Rudder. It would be full left, but I have a dead zone in mind, so that is normal. Full left, full right, neutral. And here we go. We'll go ahead and ding the flight attendants. Forward is checked. Let's get out of here. Brakes released. Packs off takeoff. Man, I haven't done one like this in a long time. I'm pretty sure it's... acceleration altitude, we get one pack back on, then we do flap 0, and then the other pack back on. Phantom, I need your wittiness on that. Packs off takeoff. I know there is. I'm thinking of anti-ice. So if you want to use wing anti-ice, you don't select wing anti-ice on until you have a clean wing. So until you're flap 0. But I'm pretty positive you can get one pack on. I think it's at acceleration altitude for us. I don't know. That'll vary again. If you're doing a packs off takeoff with the packs off and not the APU bleed running, then it's going to depend on your SOP for when you get those packs back on. But you don't want to delay on getting the packs back on because it's only going to be loud. It's only going to be an adjustment to your ears in the cabin. All right, we're lined up here on runway 8. All right, this is going to be a full-blown yoga. It doesn't get much more yoga than this. Packs off, takeoff. I need maximum yogas in chat. We're going to stand them up 50. I'm going to go full yoga, packs off. Here we go. I'm going to be quiet so you guys can enjoy the takeoff. Man, Toga, SRS runway, auto thrust blue. 80 knots, thrust set. Man, those engines are working. V1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear up. Flyby, watch your ears. We're gonna go pack 2, on. There's our acceleration altitude. Wait for a positive trend in airspeed. Let me get my screen set up here. We're going right into the sun. There it is. Thrust, climb, climb, auto thrust. X-Enviro is giving me some wicked turbulence lately. Pack 1 can come on. That deserves a double yoga. You got it, man. Now we're hitting a nice little turbulence coming out here. We'll go autopilot 1 so we can watch this takeoff here. Flap 0. Why is X-Enviro doing that, man? Shouldn't be that turbulent coming out of here this morning. Yeah, that went fast. That takeoff roll with packs off, man. You don't get any more thrust than that right there. You do not get any more thrust than a packs off Toga takeoff. We're just getting whipped around right here. Somebody mentioned the yellow electric pump. Good catch. I forgot to turn that back on after engine 2 start. Thank you. That should have been off. Thank you, Gennady. Appreciate it, man. Let's do a flyby view here in the turn. Gosh, that looks amazing. I don't know why we're all... Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to disable my XP Realistic. I think that's what's doing it. That's a cool wing up shot, though, right there. Wing down. Oh, man, that wing is flexing. I do think it's a little over-dramatized here for this type of weather condition, but that wing flex looks pretty darn realistic. All right, now that we're level, I'm going to just go ahead and disable... XP Realistic. I think it's, yeah, it's being a little aggressive for me there. All right, at or below 9,000 for goalie. We're leveling at 9 or 1,000. Drew Manis, thank you so much for the $5 donation, man. I really appreciate it. He says, awesome weather. What effect do you use for the sun effect? Great contact. Drew, thank you. This is X-Enviro. This is all X-Enviro for the weather and the sun effect. Really appreciate your support, man. But yeah, you're looking straight at X-Enviro right here. See if I can get the... Look at that right there. That's kind of cool. Someone is no doubt complaining about the bumpy climb out. Yeah, for sure. I feel like I had this same weather condition, though, with X-Enviro the other day when it wasn't even supposed to be that windy. I'm going to turn terrain mode on here. We're still below 10, so we're going to maintain 250 until we're crossing goalie at or below 9 or 1,000. Yes, these are BSS sounds. Dreamless says XP unrealistic. I mean, so I have a XP realistic profile that I made that I think is much more realistic, and I think because this is the a new install, the beta update here, I don't have my profile linked, so it's just going to default turbulent shakings, which are a little unrealistic, yeah. But that's disabled now, so now we're just looking at X-Enviro, which seems to be still making it over dramatized here. I mean, it's not that hot yet. Max Shrink says late, but made it. Read the changelog, looks cool, especially custom waypoint. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute as soon as we get up to our cruise, which we are passing goalie at 9,000 now. After that, we're just going to go open climb. See what my wind is doing? That's X-Enviro doing something weird. I mean, 050 at 7. It should be a beautiful, calm day right now. All right, there's our restriction. I'm going to go open climb, 280, thrust climb, open climb. What if I go X-Enviro Cavoke weather? Will that calm it down? Did I see my wind shifting like that? Can I change that? Can I turn this down? There we go. Turn that to 0, maybe. There we go. All right, we're at 10,000 feet. Let's go ahead and turn off the lights here. Let the flight attendants know we're climbing up and away. Oh, wow, look at that shot. Hit the like button for that sun coming off the IAE engine. If you haven't hit the like button already, hit the like button for that shot right there. That is a thing of beauty, ladies and gentlemen. Man. This is too awesome. Which IAE pack did I pick? IMDJ, this is the IAE add-on to the 319, and then the engine selection for this one is the V27 A5. I'm running the A5, not the mic version. I'm running the A5. Slam Cannon says, I asked my dad about derating. He said, yes, it can translate into longer times between engine swaps, and it's also done to maintain max service ceiling. Very interesting, Slam. Good stuff. Good to know it, man. So, I guess that makes sense. So, more derating that you have, longer time between engine swaps, which I guess now that I think about it, kind of makes sense because the engine is obviously under less stress, right? If it's been derated, so you can probably expand that maintenance time. That does make sense now that I think about it. Well, good to know, man. Thanks for bringing that up. Team Vodka says this is one of those we're going to have the cabin crew remain seated until we're climbing through rough air. You got it, man. All right, we have a short flight. Oh my gosh, what do we have up here now? Nav JipWiz terrain detect fault. All right, clear the caution. JipWiz terrain off. Off. All right. I guess we're going without JipWiz today. So I do run my airplane with random faults on. You can see that here. We do have a JipWiz that is effective. I have a pretty high flight time factor just because I like to keep it on my toes. I'm going to turn down this wind sound here. Volume. Is it weather? Yeah, we're going to turn down the wind. Oh, thank you. It would be pretty, I mean, that's pretty realistic to have a loud wind sound here. We're 340 knots at 15,000 feet. I'm going to select speed 320 here. Let's climb up. And I'm going to set standard early because I don't want to forget. And we're going to go over some of the changelog here because it is a short flight. And I want to cover some more stuff here in the changelog. So we're going to park the camera here. We do have a JipWiz terrain fault. No big deal. Day VFR. We'll park the camera right here. And I'm going to go down this changelog here. I'm not going to read all of it because you can see I have a pinned message at the top of the chat for you guys to read the whole changelog, but I wanted to talk to a couple little things here. So, pilot item database allowing creation and storage of custom waypoints. So this is actually a pretty big deal, and I'll show you what I use it most for. So there's two times that you're going to use this page. You're going to go to data, you're going to arrow page right. So you have the data index page here. This is where you can import custom waypoints. I have a video on my channel about this in the advanced McDo tips and tricks videos. So check that out if you want to see that more in detail. But what I really like and what I use this the most for on day-to-day ops is routes. So what I'll do here, I'll go to pilot routes. Hold on, let me go return. Hold on, let me come down here so I can, let me go return. Let's see, arrow page right, routes, nope, worked for me yesterday. Is it pilot routes, pilot runways? I wonder if it's because I loaded something up here. Dang it. Oh, it is a beta version, so there is a way to pull up my routes on my active flight plan. And I think it's because I already have it loaded from the... Well, that kind of shows it there. Yeah, that's why. So because I have this flight plan loaded in the X-Plane output folder, it automatically pulled the route. But what you can do at the gate, which I should have done, is you can come here before you pull a route, you can go pilot routes, and then you select store active flight plan, and it will show you your active flight plan in the box. Now, I don't know why it's not doing it now in flight, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with the fact that I loaded an FMS flight plan from the X-Plane folder. That's why it's not showing this right now. I should have done that on the ground. But what I use that function for is verifying that our PDC is indeed what we have in the box. So we'll go ahead and turn the seatbelt sign off. We'll let them run around. So what happens is, someone will program the flight plan, and then we'll get the PDC, and then the pilot monitoring that flight will go over the flight plan, make sure everything is in the box correctly. And I use that stored routes function to see exactly what's in the box as a quick overview. It does work on the ground. I don't know why it's not working in flight. Again, this is a beta build. I'm not sure if that'll be tweaked, but I know it does work because I did it yesterday when I was testing out these updates. So good to see that. We already talked about the extensive bleed system upgrade. There's quantitative bleed model affecting fuel consumption and takeoff thrust. Another big one is support for localizer type directional aid, or LDA, IGS, localizer back course approaches, which were actually prohibited from flying, and GLS approaches, which are to be determined. So that's kind of cool to see all the approaches that are coming back into the McDo here, or the support for them. This airplane is going to be able to go anywhere in the world with the support that Tolis has given it. They completely reworked the perf pages to add engine out mode, or EO mode information, as well as the climb descent predictions to a given altitude. Look at that. We have our top of climb blue arrow here. So this is new. This is on the real airplane. My top of climb 280 is predicted to be right there before hitting that Mesa waypoint. The same will be true for the descent. When we descend and you're in an open descent or vertical speed, whatever mode you're in, it will show you where your predicted bottom of descent is. That's another big one. Glad to see that coming to the 319 as well now. I just can't get over this view right here. I mean, geez. So pretty, man. They reworked the prog page to include engine out information, including the one engine out gross ceiling, which is pretty cool. That's when we start doing another check ride video. We'll get into that more engine out stuff. But this is, again, when you talk about, oh, what's a study level airplane? To me, a study level airplane has to have functionality in abnormal situations. So if I put this airplane in direct law or alternate law, if I lose an engine, if I want to simulate an engine loss, if I want to simulate failures, I have to have the airplane react as it would in real life. That, to me, is when you start doing study level stuff for a simulator platform, because day to day, 90% of the people that fly this airplane are probably never going to fail an engine. Unless you're a fan of the V1 channel and you like to fly super realistic and you turn your failures on. It keeps you on your toes. This airplane has that already modeled, and they're already adding more and more little things to make it an even better failure simulated platform for either training purposes or just for fun or whatever you want to do with it. So good to see that one engine inoperative stuff and the one engine ceiling or engine out ceiling. That's pretty cool. Okay, we're going to do a quick test here. The IAE engine properly reverts to N1 mode. So this is cool. I actually haven't tested this one yet, so let's test it. We're speed alt star. I'm going to go ahead and manage the speed here. We're coming back to 7, 8-ish Mach out cruise. That looks good. All right, so this is going to be an interesting one. You wouldn't want to do this in flight unless you were told to by the ECAM. One of the first failures, quote unquote, I've ever had in the Airbus was an EPR, or I'm sorry, was a FADEC fail. So I actually had a FADEC blow up on me coming out of San Diego one time. And what happens is this engine on the IE model, we have EPR, engine pressure ratio, right? We still have our N1 showing down here, but if you fly the CFM variant or if you fly the Neo, you're used to always seeing N1s. IAE is specific in which it uses EPR, engine pressure ratio, as the primary display of engine thrust output. If you lose a FADEC, there is a possibility that you're going to revert the engine's thrust logic to a degraded mode. So we have two types of degrading the engine FADEC mode. We have a rated and unrated mode. So a rated mode, which means we still have protections on our engine and we can't overboost the engine. And by overboosting, if you guys have ever flown a turboprop, or I guess a turboprop too, but more representative of probably you guys in training, like maybe a constant speed propeller, and you're dealing with manifold pressure and props and stuff, and you know how you don't want to have too much manifold pressure in there if your prop setting is not right because you're over boosting for the prop output. So if you have an unrated failure, you can actually be in a position to where you can stress and damage these engines if you're not careful. So we have our primary mode, which is EPR. FADEC is running totally fine, just like we are here. Then we have a rated N1 mode and an unrated N1 mode. Basically what happens is you pop these switches out here. Let's say we lose a FADEC. So what happened to me is we lost an engine to FADEC. This engine reverted into an unrated N1 mode. So the only way we could control engine thrust was by looking at the N1, which, as you know, really is not a big deal. Most new airplanes now, whether it be the NEO or CFM motors, they go off of N1 anyway, so it's really not a big deal. But the problem is you can't have one in N1 mode and then the other in EPR. So what you do is you've got to force the other engine into N1 mode, and that's what we do here. So if I had an engine 2 EPR fail, I can go engine 1. Now I've got my N1 mode down here as my primary display. And look at, you see the thrust donut right there, that blue donut? That's the thrust lever essentially setting where it is. So we're up in climb thrust right now. But if I were to move the thrust levers, you could see I'm now controlling my engine with N1 mode as a primary display other than the EPR. So I could have, we could put both N1 modes on. We're in N1 mode and we're flying this just like a NEO or just like a CFM airplane. But that's cool to see that revision. We're in N1 mode climb. So this to me would be representative of what we call that rated N1 mode, where you're pretty safe. You're not in a position to overboost the engine. If you had a significant failure, though, you could be in a position where you can damage the engines if you're in an unrated N1 mode. But that's good to see that. We'll go ahead and turn those back on. I don't know how to close the levers back down. Anyway, we'll just leave the switches up. But there we go. So we got our N1 mode simulated. Again, that's one of those things where you want to have a study level airplane. That's a study level function, is being able to revert to N1 mode. A couple more highlights here. We talked about the flight plan page rework, so the constraints are now shown prior to filling out the init-B page. Before, you couldn't see your constraints unless you filled out the initialization page B, which was incorrect because sometimes we don't get that init-B information until the very end of our pre-flight. So we're sitting there at the gate, maybe we're waiting on fuel, or maybe we're waiting on paperwork even, and we don't know our estimated zero fuel weight or anything like that. So we're sitting there with that init page B not filled out, but we can still check our flight plan. We can still see the constraints in there. We can see all that information. So that is now modeled and working on the Tolis A319. The final approach slope is now shown on the flight plan page here. So we got to do our destination data. We're falling behind. But let's just see here. I didn't even check this before. Yep, 3 degrees. So reeling, 3-degree path down to Las Vegas 26 left. So if you're doing a ILS approach, maybe you want to, it's a 3.5 or something, you could see what the slope is here on your flight plan page. That's pretty cool. That's a really small detail that I never even noticed wasn't modeled to begin with, but that's cool to see that. There's a couple other things here I'm skipping. I'm just going over a couple more highlights. Improved lateral directional handling qualities in manual flight. That's good to know. I thought it was pretty good to begin with. Maybe we'll turn the autopilot off early. We'll do some hand flying on the way down to Vegas. Changes to altitude and speed constraints of the active flight plan create a temporary flight plan. Okay, that's good. They added the RAT and outflow valve to external model. I was playing around with that in... let me turn this down here. It's going to be pretty loud when we go outside. So I played around with this last night briefly. But if you lose both of your generators, the RAT will pop out. It is modeled. You could see it. And we already talked about the outflow valve being modeled here on the aircraft as well. So it's good to see that. Man, that's a beautiful shot right there. This airplane is just so cool. Look at that. America West and their native countryside out here. Other than with you, are there any other pilot lingo that make you cringe, Andre? Not that I think. Looking for lower. That's one that I probably say myself sometimes, but when I hear it on the radio, I don't like it because it's like, oh, looking for lower. Well, what's below you? You know, it's like requesting lower would be the proper way to go about that. But that's nothing really like with you. All right, I got to pull up some info here. Let's do a quick arrival. We're coming down the Rockstar 1R nav. Load this up here. And we're going to land 8, so we're going to go plan mode. Zoom it in here. Let's go ahead and step through our flight plan here, make sure everything is kosher. There's our restriction at PD. Rockstar Huxley 250 at 10,000. There it is. From there, we're going to transition Prino 210 at 8,000. And from Prino, we're going to intercept the approach chart from that. So we're going to go back here, approach ILS runway 26 left. So from Prino, there it is. 3-degree slope, which is 3 degrees on the chart, so that matches. Good deal. Let's get the rest of our flight plan page in here. I'm going to put KLAS 26 left. I know the stream seems kind of rushed, but there's a lot of information I'm trying to cram into a very short flight. We're going to change that descent speed because we have to slow down on the start anyway. So let's do 290 on the initial transition. Altimeters and everything down there in Las Wages. What are we looking at? 220 at 3. Beautiful morning in Las Vegas as well. Good day for flying. Good day for flying. 220 at 3. Temperature is 13. Clear skies. Altimeter 3005. MDA for the ILS 26 left 2269. That goes in the MDA box. There we go. Cool. Back to ARC mode. We're approaching TOD right now. Our descend via clearance, simulating we get one to Prino, would be 8,000 feet. Let's go ahead and throw that in the box here. And we're about 5 miles prior, so let's go ahead and push for managed speed. Mach descent. Down we go. Another one of my pet peeves is asking for IFR clearance on the ground. Oh, when they say IFR, yeah, so I'd say 90% of the operators in the States anyway use some type of PDC clearance, but it's always kind of, you know, you call up, I'm trying to think. So like if you hear, for instance, let's just say like an American call and clearance, maybe their PDC doesn't work. Yeah, like to get our IFR, or they just say IFR to Vegas. That's kind of like, well, you're calling clearance, so I don't know. It's just one of those things that sounds a little weird. Another thing that's weird is when you hear someone in the States say push and start. I mean, I know that's common in Europe, and sometimes a start clearance is required. But in the States, I mean, when you hear someone say push and start, you're always like, oh, push and start, huh? Okay. Because normally you don't need to, unless it's noted on the chart. But I mean, there's just things that we always got to poke fun at each other in some little way or here or another. But there's nothing is as bad as that with you. All right, let's continue to blast through this here real quick. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any really cool ones here. Corrected the PFD speed bug location during go around. Well, we do know I go around a lot in this airplane. Prevented waypoint sequencing when flying in heading mode in opposite direction of FMS path at current 2 waypoint. That's a good one. That one's kind of hard to explain, but I know what they're talking about there. Fixed ILS indication on PFD. Let's put our LS push buttons on. 111.5, that looks good to me. I wasn't not sure which was missed there. Speed target for flap 3 landings is back to VAP. That's good. All right. various small bug fixes as well. So that's kind of the big ones that I went over there. Again, the changelog, you can read it for yourself. It's pinned at the top of the chat bar as well, so you can really look into it. I was super excited about the bleed and the packs myself, so that's why I wanted to show you guys a quick little stream here. Everything else is looking good. We don't have terrain mode, so that's fine. We've got that off. We have a small fault, but not a big deal. We'll go ahead and turn the seatbelt signs back on as we prepare for our descent. 25,000 feet. We're down to 8,000 on the transition to Las Vegas runway 8. Minimums is 2269. We're going to go manual brakes, flaps full reverse for cinematic purposes. Gross weight, we're below landing weight, 137,788. So we're a heavy 319, but we're still below max. We're good to go there. Any questions? No questions. All right, flyby. We need a list of forbidden phrases in the Discord. I'll try to come up with some today, man. I'll come up with some forbidden phrases. Or just phrases that make you think twice about. Like, huh? Oh, man, that is awesome right there. Let's watch this shot coming in here. Oh, Elias said the old ILS went out of screen. Okay, so the ILS indicator there was showing off the PFD to the left is what you're getting at? Good to see that fixed then. Lars says, I can't find version 1.6 anywhere. You're not going to find it. It's only a beta test version right now. Again, don't ask me when it's going to be released officially. I think even they mentioned they may even have 1 or 2 beta test versions before releasing a public version. So I have no idea when it's coming out. I'm just here to show you guys some cool little things that I was super excited about. 319, I think it's my baby on X-Plane, man. I love this airplane. I love the 321neo, don't get me wrong. I love flying it around. I think it's a really fun plane to fly around. But there's something about the 19 that I'm just partial to in real life that I enjoy. And in the sim, I like it too. If I'm in a 319, I feel like it doesn't matter what the weather condition is, what the runway condition is, what the terrain is like, what the density altitude is like. I feel like in a 319, you're kind of invincible. Now, you don't want to feel like that in real life because that's a hazardous attitude for all my flight instructors out there, or my guys going through training right now. You learn about the hazardous attitudes to pilot. Well, invincibility is one of them, so you don't want to feel that way in real life. But as far as the sim goes, and, you know, you could say it in real life too, there's really nothing the 319 can't do that the other airplanes can do. Whereas I could say the 321 can't do a few things that the 319 can do. So, or the 320 for that matter. Yeah, the Harmony, we're going to do an ILS approach. We got it loaded up. What I will do, though, is I'm going to go ahead and disconnect all of the autopilot automation, though, and when we get down there, I'm going to do a little hand flying just to see how it feels. I always thought the airplane hand flew pretty good, but they said they improved the lateral control of the airplane. So, I'll do a few S-turns on final. We'll see how it feels. What do I think about the flight factor 320? I think it's a good bird too, man. But the 319 is just, you look at the flight factor, that airplane's been out for how long, and you don't have half the stuff that you have on the Toliss birds now. I mean, Toliss has continued to improve upon what they've already released. So when the 319 first came out, I'll be honest with you, I thought, you know, there were some things that were lacking, but it was early. It was early in its infancy. It was a new airplane to the platform. But you look at what it was when it was released to what it is now, it almost seems like a different airplane. I mean, it's been refined, it's been retuned, you've had features added. So, it's awesome, man. I love this little bird. What's the minimum length of runway you can land on a 319? Lars, that's a tough one to answer. That would be, you'd have to really look at performance data. I know for us personally, we have a special procedure that we have to do for landing on runways less than 5,000 feet available landing distance, regardless of the aircraft you're in. So, I mean, your landing distance will depend upon your weight, environmental factors, and all that. But, you know, you can put her down on short strips, 4,000 feet long. I mean, what is, we just went into, John Wayne the other day on stream. Landing distance is, 40-something hundred feet long? And you still have plenty of room. I mean, you can get this bird down and you can get it stopped in a hurry. Shouldn't we set DH for precision approach and MDA for non-precision? The Harmony, no. That will actually, I shouldn't say no straight out, but again, that could be a company-specific thing. Let me set our altimeter here real quick, and then I'm going to explain. So 3005 is set, passing 18, check. So in the real airplane, what we have now, we have what's called baro and radio. It doesn't even say MDH and DH anymore. So baro mins are just a barometric reference, right? It's going to be your altitude here for your minimum. A DH, or radio minimum, since a radio altimeter, for us, you're looking at, typically, it's going to be a Cat 2 or Cat 3 type of approach. Now, this can vary from airline to airline, from airframe to airframe, and the word Cat 2 or the approach Cat 2, Cat 3 isn't even really a thing anymore. They're actually going away with that. It's fail operational and fail passive. So it's hard for me to sit here and try to explain, you know, well, you should do this, you should do this, when in real life it's changing. And, you know, even the Airbus is going to be changing dramatically here within coming months with FMS2 revisions. But generally speaking, the way we do it, it's an MDA unless you're doing a Cat 2 or Cat 3 approach. I think that's a good way to look at it in the sim. You're not going to hurt yourself either way you do it. I mean, 2269 is essentially 200 feet above the ground. So you could put a DH here of 200, but, you know, you can do either or, really. You really could. But like I said, in real life, this is actually different. This is baro and radio. But it's hard to blanket statement something like that because you have thousands of different airlines and thousands of different SOPs out there. And it's just going to depend on who you're working for. Team Vodka says the 321 says baro and radio. Oh, that's awesome. That's good. Sam says, I get the confusion because an MDA is typically a non-precision when it comes to technicalities versus a DA. You're correct, Sam. That's why you have to look at your chart. But this is actually, 2269 is actually a DA. So a DA is an MSL altitude. A DA, a decision altitude, is by definition an MSL altitude of 2269. A DH, or a decision height, is a rad altitude, or a height above ground. So if you put the arrow over the A here and we use the parentheses, we now have DH. So you have to look at your parentheses minimum of 200 feet AGL. So that's where you got to be careful, because if you're doing an MDA approach, now you got to look at 2520 plus 50, so you're 2570. Or you can do an MDH, which is a minimum decision height, which is the parentheses altitude above ground level. So DA, anytime you see A, think of altitude. Decision altitude, that's your MSL altitude. When you see an H, height, that's your height above the ground. That's going to be a rad altitude or an altitude above ground level. All right, 12.9 descending 12,000. This approach can get real slippery here in real life too. You got to be careful. So we're 250 over 10. I can't use the terrain on ND because our terrain bugged out on us. Not a problem. I'll write it up here on the ground in maintenance for Las Vegas to take over. I'm going to the hotel after this flight anyway, so no worries for me. Sucks for the next crew. 250 at or above 10,000 feet. We're looking good. 8,000. And yeah, we'll keep coming down. Look at this shot right here, though. This is beautiful. That is awesome. The 320 NX Mon uses baro as well. There you go. Sam says, I've heard a few pilots say they prefer the 321 and the 319 landing characteristics to the 320, and I remember you saying the same. Is there a specific reason? Honestly, the 320 is, in my opinion, the hardest of the three to get a really good landing in. I don't know. I think it just has to do with the drag, the way you have the drag set up on a 320 and the weight of the 320, but you get a 320 with sharklets, it does tend to float a little bit, so it makes it easier to get a soft touchdown. But a standard 320 CEO, there's just something about it, and if I don't know the technicalities behind it, but I would totally agree in stating that the 320 is the most tricky of the three to get that perfect touchdown in. I don't know what it is about it. The 321, in my opinion, is the easiest because, you come in a little bit flatter. You have that different flap configuration on the wing there, so you come in a little bit flatter. Really don't need to flare much in the 321. It's a pretty easy airplane to land. There really is nothing to it. You come down, you retard the thrust, and you pitch up a little bit. 319, same thing. However, if you're light in a 319, it can be challenging to get a soft landing. A light 319, especially in the world of COVID here, it can be challenging to get a real soft landing in a light 319. It wants to just stop flying, essentially. The 320 though it's just that oddball one, man. I don't know. I don't have a technical answer for you, but I will tell you it is one of the more challenging ones. All right, we're at 10,000 feet. All right. Good announcement from her. We're at 10,000 feet to Preno. I'm going to kind of look. We got our level off stick there. I don't know if that was always there. 210 at 8,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select speed. I'm going to come all the way back to 210. I'm going to go spoid brake out. I'm going to go perf page, activate, confirm. Now look at that speed just coming right back already. Spoid brake. 10 more likes to hit 319 likes. Let's do it, guys. Let's get 319 likes. If you haven't liked this video already, please do hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. If you like this kind of content too, it helps the algorithm. Also, YouTube is really funky with their notifications. I've noticed that only 5% of viewers that watch a video get notified that I've released a video or that I'm going live. So make sure your notifications are on too if you want to see this type of content. And the best part about it is as soon as you get sick of me, you can always unsubscribe and you can always stop getting notifications. But if you do like this kind of content, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button there. And if you want to make sure you don't miss a video, hit the notification. All right, we're 210 feet going to 8,000 at Preno. We're right on it. We're looking good. I probably wouldn't extend flaps here in real life, but for cinematic purposes, I want to extend flaps one so we can watch the slats come out here. I love it. I will say this, the flap sounds, this is not the default sound, this is BSS sounds, but the default Tolis 319 flap sounds, I ran it last night with no sound pack. The 319 flap sounds are very good. I wish there was a way I could change the BSS sounds to be the default 319 sounds, because I don't know if they've updated it or what, but I love the 319 default flap sounds that they have now. If I could get the BSS pack with the default 319 sounds kind of mixed in there, it'd be even better. All right, 210. Let's go ahead and arm the approach. Look at that, double star, glide slope star, loc star, Cat 1, autopilot 1+2. That's interesting. We're even getting Cat 1 out here at this range. That should eventually change to Cat 3 as we get closer. That's pretty incredible that they've got that modeled, if that is in fact what's going to happen. I'm going to come back to 180 knots here. All right, so on the slope in flaps 1, this is where you'll get in trouble in Vegas, especially if it's hot and if you're heavy. This is where I see new guys all the time come in high and fast here in Vegas. Here we are, we're 210 knots at Preno. We're cleared for the approach. We've intercepted the glide slope, but look at our speed. It's not coming back. If you don't do anything, especially in a 320, you have a very easy tendency to get high and fast here. Not necessarily high because you're already on the slope, but you have a tendency to get fast. So, no problem, 319. Spoid brake. Spoid brakes on the slope in the 319, and we see that trend arrow starting to come up. Look at that. Speed is starting to work itself back. Are you furloughed or are you back flying? No, I am not furloughed. I am blessed to be flying. I'm actually flying tonight. That's why we're doing a short, quick stream today, because I actually have to get, I was supposed to get my hair cut. This is how much I love you guys. My hair is out of control right now, and I was going to go get a haircut today before my report time, but then this update came out to the beta testers last night. I flew around with it a little bit. Look, now we're Cat 3 dual. That's just like the real airplane because of the distance from the loc. That's awesome. Hats off to Tolis. So I was supposed to get a haircut today, look all sharp for my flight tonight, but then I had so much fun with this update with the new bleed pressure logic, a couple other updates. I said I got to get a stream out. So I'm going to the airport with a little bit longer hair than I would like to, but after this flight, I'm hitting the shower, I'm getting dressed, and I'm out the door. So there's VFE next -10. We'll go flaps 2. Flaps 2 is out. All right, now we're at that flaps 2, 180 knots. We'll go ahead and stow the spoid brakes there. Don't leave them out or else you're going to be burning gas when you don't need to be burning gas. And we're on the approach. Let's go ahead and set our go-around altitude. If we do have to go mist, it's up to 6,000 feet. So we have 6,000 feet is set. Lights are on. We're clear to land 26. I need to get to Las Vegas. I need to get that flight Tampa. I looked at it last night and I was like, man, $32 for flight Tampa, Vegas? Like, ugh. So we're just going with some default Tampa, or excuse me, default Las Vegas right now. Does the captain and flight or first officer switch roles on multi-leg flights? Yeah, all the time, Brandon. So every leg we switch. So either I'll take the first leg out, give it to the FO the next leg, or maybe he wants to take it out. You switch every leg. So you guys are both trained the same way. The only reason you have, a captain is essentially he's been there longer than you, right? And when you operate in a crew environment, when the time has come where decisions need to be made, someone has to be the ultimate person responsible and in charge. Hence when you introduce a captain role. So you guys are both equally trained on the airplane. Captain does a little bit more training annually. He goes in depending on how your recurrent system is set up. The captain will get a little bit more training as opposed to the FO, where I don't know if it's the same with AQP now or not, but either way, the FO will get training at the minimum of once a year, where the captain will every 6 months. But other than that, you guys are both typed in the airplane, and you both are highly qualified pilots. So yeah, you switch legs all the time. Do I ever find myself looking for a flyby on the real jet, Max? All the time, dude. No, you know what I miss is every time we're starting engines there, I'm always like trying to look out my window. But in the 319, it's the best because you're closer to the engine. You can kind of hear it starting up. But I wish I could see this view during engine start. Like, that's one thing I miss about being up front. Is like, man, I like to sit back here and listen to these engines spool up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set this, get my view in here. I'm going to go manage speed early. I know I like that flaps 2 180 thing, but I'm going to configure early because I want to do a couple S-turns here and see how she hand flies. So we're going to go autopilot off. Clear the caution. Flight directors are coming off. Give me the bird in chat. Here we go. And I'm going to do some S-turns. So we're going to get a little unstable on the approach here. But I want to just see how she handles here. They said they did some adjustment in lateral flying. Do a little S-turn here. I'm going to shallow out. Seat back pocket. Coming in with a $5 bomb. Says it's $27 now. Seat back, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Man, I'm going to have to pick it up now, aren't I? Thank you, Seat back. I appreciate your support on the channel, man. We'll go flaps 3. I'm doing some S-turns here intentionally because I kind of want to see... Yeah, I mean, I always thought the 319 flew pretty good.
1,000.
It does feel pretty good. Well, we may have to go around here. Let's see. Gears coming down, flaps full. I think it flies beautifully. They said they tweaked the lateral flying. I mean, it flies really good. I think it flies just like the real thing. What is that? Oh, it's because the gear wasn't down. A little late on the gear. Phantom 320, come on, man. All right, we're 500 feet, stable. Cabin status blue, that checks. Phantom 320 was late on the gear there. 2 whites, 2 reds. We're on slope.
100 above. 300. Minimum.
Landing.
Terrain.
I think that terrain is...
Terrain.
I wonder if that's because we have that terrain fault.
50.
Terrain.
40. 30. 20. Retard. 10. 5.
Spoilers. Reverse screen. That terrain fault might have been because my terrain is pretty awful here. $70 knots. $198? That felt a little better than a 198. We'll stow the buckets here. That felt better than a 198 in my opinion. We'll see. We're going to go ahead and clear to cross both runways over to the ramp. Cactus 357. Why are you unstable and not going around? I was doing that intentionally. I wanted to kind of feel the lateral flying of the airplane Tolis said they've changed the lateral flight control characteristics. I thought it felt really good even before. It feels really good right now, so I have no qualms. I think the airplane flies just like the real airplane does. But yeah, we weren't doing this flight to be 100% SOP realistic. I mean, we did a yellow electric pump takeoff and kind of blotched. We did an intentional cross-bleed start fault. So this stream was more about kind of showing you guys some little things about this airplane and what's happening. All right, we're clear both runways. Let's go ahead and reconfigure the airplane. We're going to go around the FedEx station here, and then we'll take it over to this terminal right here. We'll clean it up. Lights are coming off. And again, Phantom was late on the gear. That's why we had that master caution there. It's definitely not Chicago. Gavin Cornell coming in with another $5 donation. Thank you so much. He says it's $22 now. Oh boy, here it comes. Yep. Gavin, thank you so much for your support on the channel, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. You're right. Flight Tampa is down to $22. You could see I definitely need help with my Las Vegas scenery. There is not a big hole here in real life, so it may be time that I just need to go ahead and bite the bullet and get that Flight Tampa. I believe Southwest owns this terminal over here now, so we're going to piss them off by putting an America WestJet over here. That's all right. We'll go ahead and turn off the taxi light as we enter the ramp. Niels flips the bird. Yep. Let's take this first one. Nah, we'll take that second one. All these trucks are coming here. I was landing at San Diego. The train warning went off. I don't know why. I've noticed that in the Tolis airplane. I don't know if that has something to do with maybe the scenery, if you have a certain scenery, or maybe the airport database isn't the correct size for that terrain warning. That is one thing I'm glad you brought it up. I may have to ask them, because I've noticed that a couple times where I'll get a terrain warning when you wouldn't get one in real life, and you definitely don't get them in Vegas unless, of course, you are unstable. But it is a good point. Might have to bring that up. We don't have a marshaller, so we're going to do a cheating parking job here. That's all right. A 319 is the second stripe here, so we'll roll it in. This is weird. I'm steering backwards. Little Southwest stop there. Brakes are set. Engine 2. We've got to split the throttles. That way we've got the cabin pressurization in the door. So you guys always ask, why do you shut down engine 2, then the seatbelt sign? So, fun fact here, one more time. It's not modeled, but this is a good piece of information. If you haven't hit the like button, hit the like button for this piece of information I'm about to give you. If you Google, or if you just look at an aircraft door, Airbus door in particular, you're going to see when you're boarding the airplane, there's a little triangle inside this window here. And it's typically white, and it says cabin pressure or something like that. So that little triangle will light up when the cabin is pressurized if the gear is, the gear down or something. There's another stipulation to it. But you have to have one engine running. So if I were to shut both engines off, this light will not illuminate. Hold on, I got to think about it. All right, I don't want to tell you the wrong information. Okay, so if you didn't hit the like button, then I don't blame you. But essentially, we split the master switches here because of that pressurization light in the door. If I were to shut down both engines and then the seatbelt sign, I'm going to have to look it up. It's bothering me. It won't illuminate or something like that. But basically, you want that light to be able to go on if the gate agent is trying to open the door and the cabin is still pressurized for some reason. Never really happens. I've never had an issue where the airplane didn't pressurize, but that's why we do 2 seatbelt sign and then engine 1. Let's go ahead and turn on the external power here. I'm sure one of you guys will correct me in the comments and read me the riot act on that, but all I know is I know it has something to do with that switch. So there we go. Engine 1's coming offline. All right, we're spooling down. Let's do a replay. And let's go check that out here. So we're going to go toggle replay mode. Let's back it up. I know the approach was a little wonky, but we know why. Doing our S turns here on final. Now it's really bothering me, that cabin pressurization door. I know, because I got asked this question one time on the check ride, and I was like, yeah, and it was made total sense, and now I'm drawing a blank, so I apologize. We do not have another leg flaps 40. But we can watch the landing gear come down. Yeah, you could see this might be why I was getting that terrain call out too, just because my terrain is really incorrect. Simpan says the light tells them not to open the door in case their cabin is still pressure. Correct. That is correct, but for it to actually work, the masters have to be split. I believe that's what it is. I believe the master switch has to be split on the ground so it's illuminating. And then when you shut both master switches off, it won't work. Oh man, I just lined up on the wrong runway. There we go. All right, back it up. Here we go. Let's watch this touchdown. Well, that's pretty cool with the X Enviro in the background. All right, so this said 190. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I believe it. I'll believe it. Probably in that 190, 200 range. Nice touchdown, though, right on the center line. 10 for 10 for center line. And overall, I'd say that's a pretty good Airbus landing in real life. You know, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Probably not your ultimate butter that you're looking for. Oh, we're going to have to hear these sounds. All right. Because it's going to get loud, and I don't want to be talking over it. I want you guys to enjoy it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in on this quick little stream. I know it was quick and it might have seemed a little bit rushed, but as you all know, as I'm actually headed to the airport now, I'm going to get ready. I'm going flying. I hope you guys enjoy flying your Tolis birds around. I sure enjoy the heck out of flying these things around in X-Plane. Again, the update is pinned to the chat box there if you want to see the official changelog and all the information. Until next time, guys, I'm V1. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'm going to leave you with a few replays here so you can listen to the BSS sound pack in full force. We'll talk to you next time. See ya!